This law affects John Lewis as when customers order something from their website, they hand over their name and bank account details along with other pieces of personal information which John Lewis is required to keep safe and private due to the Data Protection Act. This law also protects John Lewis's employees as when they are employed by John Lewis, they hand over their full name, phone number, address, bank details, and other extremely personal and sensitive information. And the DPA, Data Protection Act, means that John Lewis cannot misuse any of the data their employees have supplied them with, meaning they cannot release to the public. The information can only be seen by a small number of people, and this information cannot be shown to people who do not have access to it. This law also protects the employees and customers in a way that their personal data is not kept longer than needed. The law protects John Lewis's customers and employees as their personal information may not be transferred between countries unless it is secure. The Computer Misuse Act affects John Lewis as it means they have the right to take legal action against any organisation or individual that hacks them. This law also resides inside John Lewis as it makes the act of stealing someone's identity to gain access to files that would otherwise be restricted illegal with serious consequences. An advantage of the Freedom of Information Act to John Lewis is that they could use this law to conduct market research as they could request to see which areas have the highest population of their target market, which could help them determine where to set up new stores. There are also some disadvantages to the Computer Misuse Act law. An employee could access some sort of network managed by John Lewis and change settings which cause no harm to any software or files, but by definition have committed an offence and are labelled hackers. One disadvantage of the Data Protection Act is that John Lewis has to train all of the staff and employees how to handle customer and other employees' personal data, so it doesn't go to the wrong place where it could be exposed to the public or other employees who do not have the right to see it. The employees will need to learn this skill if they are working in John Lewis's online shop, where they must take money out of customers' accounts, which involves handling names, bank account numbers, and other very sensitive information. The Freedom of Information Act also gives consumers the right to check John Lewis's financial statistics, which could be a disadvantage, as if John Lewis were struggling financially and their financial report was released, some customers would start to prefer competitors to them due to lack of faith and other factors. Information ownership can affect John Lewis as the Code of Business keeps employees from revealing documents to competitors and other businesses, and if they do, are vulnerable to legal action by John Lewis. When dealing with sensitive business information, John Lewis employees are expected to keep all business information safe and confidential. An example of this is when company employees are using internal communication amongst themselves and company information is being passed around. When this happens, the employees involved are expected to keep the information safe and keep it from getting out into the public or the press, and also prevent rival companies from getting it so they can use it to their advantage. Whistleblowing is when an employee of a company reports suspected wrongdoing within the company that they are employed at. This is called blowing the whistle. The wrongdoing may involve crime, danger, fraud, or other employees simply neglecting their duties. Whistleblowers report wrongdoings that are officially stated as making a disclosure in the public interest, which means the actions that employees report are generally affect others outside the company that has been committing the offences. Whistleblowers are meant to report the offence to some sort of manager at the organisation that they are reporting, but if they feel that this is not an option, they can choose to report the company to a third party such as the press. Whistleblowers are protected by the Disclosure Act. This means that anybody that works at the company and reports it are legally protected from victimization and prejudice, and they cannot get fired or made redundant, with the primary reason being them reporting the company. This affects John Lewis in a positive way, as it means that they must not breach any laws or commit any crimes or offences, as if an employee notices something happening within John Lewis which is illegal, it would be immoral not to report it, so the action ceases to continue. This action could be fraud in the form of lying to customers about products that they are buying, or other breaches of selected laws. The internet also helps John Lewis with recruitment, as they can look up their candidates on social media, and the internet also helps with research in the business environment and keeping up with competitors. The internet can help with the recruitment process, as John Lewis can get some kind of idea of what the candidate is like. For example, if a candidate has put themselves drinking and pulling irresponsible stunts on their social media platforms, John Lewis would see this and look for a more suitable candidate. An advantage of the email policy that John Lewis has adopted is that John Lewis may create a work email account for their employees, which is open to receiving emails from customers during work hours, but an automatic message is sent to any customer who sends an email after work hours to give their employees time to relax. One disadvantage of John Lewis's email policy is that they may limit the amount of commercial and advertisement emails they send to customers, as they may feel they are getting hassled by John Lewis. This could be a disadvantage, as their commercial emails to customers could help expand their brand and help expose their products, and by limiting the amount of commercial and advertising emails they put out, they could slow down the exposure of their brand. One disadvantage of whistleblowing is that this could potentially be unfair to John Lewis or any other organisation, as if an employee reports an offence which is being committed by a small and exclusive group of people or just one individual, the whole organisation will get the blame, which is unfair on people that had no idea the offence was even taking place, and everyone else. One disadvantage of the internet is that John Lewis can browse competing brand social media pages, and if there is any controversial matter on there, the person responsible could be sacked and the company could be taken to court, which is an advantage to John Lewis, although this works the same way, vice versa. If one John Lewis employee retweets an offensive tweet or follows a page with controversial and morally wrong opinions, John Lewis could be taken to court with the company that finds this. This rule will apply to John Lewis if a rival company like Marks & Spencer grows bigger than John Lewis and puts them out of business. The business continuity plan will protect John Lewis employees and assets so they can continue to keep living a normal life even though the company they work for can no longer afford to keep paying them. This will also apply if John Lewis is faced with bankruptcy due to other factors like national or global recession. The advantage of making backups is that any business information that employees receive, backups keep it from getting lost or deleted. This mainly applies to on-screen information, as written communication in the form of physical letters and other forms of written information are not affected by software performance, while if there is business information in the form of graphs and emails, which are all recorded on computers or on a virtual cloud, there is some sort of software failure, such as a memory failure or a system crash, and the business information is not backed up, the information could be lost forever, which is why it is advantageous to John Lewis to create backups so sensitive business information is not lost. Health and safety is an operational issue which John Lewis employees and more senior figures of the company need to consider and follow. These rules need to be followed as they are organisational issues and make employees' workplace safer, as they have a guarantee of safety from John Lewis, and John Lewis will not want to face legal action for the absence of employee safety. The company will need to follow these health and safety rules, as if they are breached by John Lewis could face legal action. An example of when this happened is in 2010, when some company employees were exposed to asbestos in a John Lewis factory. One disadvantage of creating backups of business information is, like information ownership, backing data up can take time and money, as new hardware that can help backup files and information can cost a lot. And creating new software which can help record sensitive business information better, and creating new business software with a smaller chance of breaking can also cost a lot of time and can cost a lot of money. One disadvantage of the health and safety policy that John Lewis have is that if one employee is injured on the job and John Lewis could have done nothing to prevent it, an example of this is getting a hand caught machine, they will still get in legal trouble. A disadvantage of a business continuity plan is if John Lewis falls into debt or goes bankrupt, they will still have to pay their employees so they can continue living a normal life even though they have little money to try and get themselves out of their situation and continue functioning.